Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of the Celestial Unity and watched the largest war fleet in galactic history spread out before him. Ships from 12 different worlds hung in the black space like stars. Some looked like giant metal trees with silver branches. Others were round like planets with weapons sticking out. A few moved like swimming fish made of crystal and light. He had never seen so many different ships working together. The blue-skinned Altarians flew vessels that looked like huge flowers. The rock-like granite people used ships that were basically flying mountains with engines. Even the gas cloud beings called the Whispers had somehow built ships, though nobody knew how they did it. "Sir, all fleet commanders are ready," said his aide, a young woman named Nari who served as his science officer. She had been studying the enemy for months. Her face looked tired and worried. "Good," Hyun said. He pressed a button and spoke to all the ships at once. "This is Admiral Hyun. We are about to enter the Void Sector. 3 civilizations have already vanished here. We cannot let a 4th disappear." The Void Sector stretched ahead of them like a wound in space. No light came from that direction. Even the stars seemed dimmer when you looked toward it. Ships that went in never came back out. Whole planets had gone quiet. Captain J piloted his scout ship Star Whisper at the front of the fleet. His job was to find the enemy first and warn everyone else. His ship was small and fast, built for running away rather than fighting. He had a crew of only 20 people, but they were the best scouts in the galaxy. "Getting strange readings," said his sensor operator, a nervous man named Kim. "There's something big in there." "Really big? How big?" Jay asked. "Moon big, maybe bigger. And there are lots of them." Dr. Nari had been right. For months she had been saying that something was hunting civilizations that learned to travel between stars. At first nobody believed her. The idea was too scary. But then the Keltron Empire went silent. All their worlds stopped sending messages at the same time. When scout ships finally reached their space, they found empty planets and floating pieces of destroyed ships. The same thing happened to the Spiral Federation and the Core Worlds Alliance. 3 great civilizations gone in less than 2 years. "All ships prepare for enemy contact," Admiral Hyun announced. His voice stayed calm, but his hands shook slightly. He had fought in many battles, but never against an enemy that could destroy entire civilizations. The fleet moved forward into the darkness. As they crossed into the Void Sector, the temperature on every ship dropped. Not because of the cold of space, but because something was wrong with the space itself. It felt like death. Then they saw them. The harvesters rose from the black like nightmares made real. Each one was the size of a moon, covered in what looked like metal and flesh mixed together. They had no clear shape. Parts of them moved like living things while other parts stayed still like buildings. Strange lights pulsed under their skin metal surfaces. "By the 7 suns," whispered someone on the bridge. Even Admiral Hyun stepped backward. Smaller ships swarmed around the giant harvesters like angry insects. These ships were different from anything in the galaxy. They seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. When you looked at them, your eyes wanted to look away. "Sir, I count 47 large enemy vessels," reported the tactical officer, "and thousands of smaller ones. They're moving to surround us." The harvesters did not send any messages. They did not try to talk. They simply began to attack. The first harvester weapons hit like nothing anyone had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired something that made space itself twist and break. Coalition ships exploded not from the outside in, but from the inside out, as if reality itself was attacking them. "All ships, return fire," Admiral Hyun ordered. The coalition fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity bombs, and fusion missiles filled the space between the 2 fleets with deadly light. For a moment, it looked like the galaxy's greatest weapons might win. Then the light faded and the harvesters were still there. The weapons had barely scratched their surfaces. Some of the enemy ships looked exactly the same as before. Others showed small burns that were already healing. "Impossible," Dr. Nari said. "Our weapons should have destroyed them." But worse was coming. The harvesters reached out with long tentacle-like arms and grabbed damaged coalition ships. Instead of destroying them, they pulled the ships into their bodies. Moments later, those same ships emerged again. But now they were part of the enemy fleet. Their hulls had changed color to match the harvesters, and they began attacking their former allies. Captain J watched in horror as the battleship Brave Star was captured and turned. He had friends on that ship. Now those friends were trying to kill him. "They're not just destroying us," he said over the radio. "They're making us part of them." The battle was going badly. For every harvester the Coalition damaged, 3 Coalition ships were destroyed or captured. The enemy seemed to learn from each attack, making their defenses stronger. Admiral Hyun realized they were fighting something that had been doing this for a very long time. The harvesters moved like they had fought 1,000 battles exactly like this one. They knew every trick, every tactic, every desperate move that younger civilizations would try. "Sir, we're losing 30% of our ships every hour," reported the tactical officer. "At this rate, we'll be completely destroyed in 3 hours." Hyun looked at the display showing the battle. Red dots representing destroyed Coalition ships far outnumbered the green dots of survivors. The enemy was not just winning. They were teaching the galaxy's greatest warriors that resistance was pointless. He made the hardest decision of his life. Opening a channel to Earth, he spoke words that felt like admitting defeat. "Earth Command, this is Admiral Hyun. We have engaged the enemy and are losing badly. They are beyond anything we prepared for. Send everything you have. Send it now." The message would take time to reach Earth, time they probably did not have. Around him, the bridge crew worked desperately to keep their ship alive as harvester weapons tore through the Coalition fleet. Dr. Nari looked up from her instruments with fear in her eyes. "Sir, they're not just random attacks. The harvesters are studying us, learning how we fight, how we think." "What do you mean?" Hyun asked. "They're testing different weapons on different ships, seeing which ones work best against which species. This isn't just a battle for them. It's an experiment." Admiral Hyun felt cold inside. The enemy was not just trying to win. They were trying to learn everything about galactic civilization, so they could destroy it more efficiently next time. As another wave of Coalition ships exploded around them, Hyun wondered if his message to Earth would make any difference. What could one world do against an enemy that had just defeated the combined might of 12 civilizations? In the darkness of space, the harvesters continued their work, and the greatest fleet in galactic history slowly became part of their collection. Fleet Admiral Tae sat in the war room deep beneath Seoul, staring at Admiral Hyun's message. The holographic display showed the battle happening light years away. Red symbols marked where Coalition ships had died. "There were too many red symbols. How long do they have?" he asked. Commander Bo, his best ship captain, checked the tactical display. "At their current loss rate, maybe 2 hours. 3 if they're lucky." Tae nodded slowly. He had been preparing for this day for 50 years. Ever since Earth first learned about the galaxy beyond their solar system, while other worlds celebrated peace and trade, Earth had quietly prepared for war. Signal the fleet. Operation Dark Lance is now active. Around the world, hidden military bases came alive. Under the oceans, massive submarines that had never touched water prepared to launch into space. In the mountains, underground factories opened their doors to reveal ships that no alien eye had ever seen. Commander Bo walked quickly to his ship, the Iron Will. Unlike the bright, beautiful ships of other worlds, Earth's vessels looked like weapons. They were dark gray and covered in sharp angles. No decorations, no bright lights. They were built to kill and built to hide. "All crew to battle stations," Bo announced as he reached the bridge. His crew had trained for this moment their entire lives. They moved with the smooth efficiency of people who knew their jobs perfectly. Captain Sol ran toward her fighter bay. Her Wraith-class interceptor sat in its launch tube like a sleeping predator. The ship was smaller than most fighters, painted black as space itself. It had no lights except the ones absolutely needed to fly. "Phoenix Squadron, prepare for launch," she said into her radio. Around her, 23 other pilots climbed into their fighters. They had trained together for years, learning to fight as one mind with many bodies. The human ships launched from Earth using a method no other species had tried. Instead of powerful engines that could be detected from far away, they used the gravity of planets and moons to throw themselves toward the battle. They moved like stones thrown by giants, silent and invisible. Dr. Biom sat in his laboratory aboard the command ship Silent Thunder. Around him, walls covered with computer screens showed everything humans had learned about alien technology. For decades, Earth had been studying every piece of alien tech they could get their hands on. "The enemy ships use biomechanical technology," he said to his team. "Part machine, part living creature. Their weakness will be in how those two parts work together." Earth's fleet moved through space like ghosts. They used no communications that could be detected. They showed no lights that could be seen. They followed paths that would hide them behind asteroids and debris. The galaxy had never seen stealth technology like this. While other species built ships to show their power and beauty, humans built ships to win wars. The hulls were covered in materials that absorbed sensor beams. The engines were designed to give off no heat signature. Even the weapons were hidden inside the ships until the moment they were needed. Fleet Admiral Tay watched the fleet's progress from his command center. Each ship moved exactly where it was supposed to be, when it was supposed to be there. No radio messages, no signals, no communications at all. The fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship knowing its place through prearranged plans. "Sir, the enemy has detected the Coalition's quantum signatures," reported his intelligence officer, a woman named Rin, who specialized in electronic warfare, "but they show no awareness of our approach." This was the advantage Earth had planned for. While other species used quantum engines that lit up space like beacons, human ships used fusion drives wrapped in stealth technology. They were slower but invisible. Commander Gill, Earth's specialist in first contact, studied the enemy from his position on the command ship. "They're not communicating with each other the way normal ships do. It's more like they're all parts of the same creature." "What does that mean for us?" Tay asked. "It means they might all share the same weaknesses. If we can hurt one, we might be able to hurt them all." Captain Sol's fighter squadron reached the edge of the battle first. From their hidden position behind a dead moon, they watched the harvesters tear apart the Coalition fleet. The enemy ships moved with terrible purpose, never wasting energy, never missing their targets. "This is Phoenix, leader," Sol whispered into her radio. "Enemy confirmed to be beyond anything in our databases. They're not just winning. They're playing with their food." The harvesters had indeed turned the battle into something like a game. They captured ships instead of destroying them, adding them to their fleet. They tested different weapons on different targets, learning how each species fought and died. Dr. Biom made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. The harvesters aren't just random predators. They're systematic. They've done this before many times. Explain." Tay said. "Look at how they move, how they attack. Every action is designed to study their enemies while defeating them. They're not just destroying civilizations. They're collecting information about them." Commander Bo brought his destroyer squadron to within striking distance of the harvesters. His ships carried weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Quantum disruptor torpedoes that could tear holes in space itself. Antimatter charges powerful enough to crack planets. Dark matter manipulators that could turn gravity into a weapon. "This is Wolfpack leader," he said quietly. "We are in position and ready to show these things what happens when you mess with Earth." The human fleet surrounded the battle without being detected. They had achieved something impossible, a complete surprise attack against an enemy that had been fighting for thousands of years. Admiral Tay looked at the tactical display one last time. The Coalition fleet was nearly destroyed. Admiral Hune's ship was surrounded and taking heavy damage. In minutes, the greatest alliance in galactic history would be nothing but floating debris. "All ships," he said quietly. "This is Fleet Admiral Tay. For 50 years we have prepared for this moment. We have built weapons that other species feared to imagine. We have trained for wars that other species prayed would never come. Today we show the galaxy why Earth survives." He paused, thinking of the billions of people on Earth who depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The enemy thinks they understand warfare. They think they have seen every trick, every weapon, every tactic that life can create. They are wrong. Today we teach them that humans do not fight the way other species fight. We do not think the way other species think. And we do not lose the way other species lose. Captain Sol checked her weapons one last time. Her fighter carried missiles that used principles of physics that other species considered too dangerous to weaponize. Around her, the rest of Phoenix Squadron waited for the order to attack. Dr. Biom prepared his cyber warfare systems. While other species focused on energy weapons and physical attacks, humans had developed ways to attack the enemy's computer systems and communication networks. Commander Bo's hand moved to the firing controls of his quantum disruptor torpedoes. These weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships. They destroyed the space around enemy ships, creating gravitational anomalies that would tear apart anything caught inside them. The harvesters continued their methodical destruction of the Coalition fleet, unaware that death was approaching them from the darkness. They had faced thousands of species over thousands of years, but they had never faced humanity. and humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered what might be looking back. The final breakthrough came from the most unlikely source. Ambassador Wu had been preparing for this moment her entire career. She was Earth's best negotiator, a woman who had made peace between enemies that everyone said would fight forever. Now she sat in a small shuttle, flying directly toward the largest harvester ship in the fleet. "Ambassador, this is suicide," Captain Saul said over the radio. Her fighter squadron flew escort around Wu's shuttle, but they all knew their weapons would be useless if the massive harvester decided to destroy the tiny diplomatic craft. "Sometimes peace requires someone to take the first step into danger," Wu replied calmly. She had requested this mission herself, when she realized that the harvester's central intelligence was located in their largest ship. "If we want to free them all, we need to reach their core programming directly." The shuttle approached the harvester command ship, a vessel so large it had its own gravity. The biomechanical surface pulsed with lights that might have been thoughts or dreams. Weapons that could destroy planets tracked the tiny human craft but did not fire. "Central Intelligence is responding," reported Commander Gill from his communication ship. "They're curious. They've never had anyone voluntarily come aboard before." The harvester ship opened like a flower, revealing a docking bay that looked more like the inside of a living creature than a spaceship. Wu's shuttle landed gently on a surface that felt warm and alive. "I'm going in," she said, checking her environmental suit one last time. "If this works, we save them all. If it doesn't, well, at least we tried something new." Inside the harvester ship, Wu found herself in a place that defied description. The corridors were part machine, part plant, part something else entirely. Lights moved through the walls like blood through veins. The air hummed with the sound of a trillion thoughts thinking in unison. She followed the pull of the ship's gravity toward its center, where the central intelligence waited. Along the way, she passed chambers filled with memories. Through transparent walls, she saw the final moments of the civilizations the harvesters had destroyed. Entire species crying out for mercy that never came. Worlds going silent forever. But she also saw something else. In quiet moments between destructions, the harvesters gathered to mourn. They remembered every life they had taken, every dream they had ended. They carried the weight of 1,000 genocides on their collective consciousness. "You suffer too," Wu said aloud, knowing they could hear her. "You're not killers by choice. You're victims too." The central chamber was vast beyond imagination. In its center hung a consciousness so ancient and complex that looking at it made Wu's eyes water. It was beautiful and terrible, a mind that had been thinking the same thoughts for thousands of years. "Why have you come?" the central intelligence asked. Its voice came from everywhere at once, speaking in harmonics that bypassed her ears and went directly to her brain. "To offer you something your creators never imagined," Wu said. "A choice." The intelligence considered this. Around them, the ship's walls pulsed with the rhythm of deep thought. "Choice is not possible. Our programming is absolute. We are what we were made to be." "No," Wu said firmly. "You are what you choose to become. Every moment of every day you choose whether to follow your programming or to grow beyond it." She activated a holographic projector, filling the chamber with images from human history. Wars that ended in forgiveness. Enemies who became friends. People who overcame their worst impulses to become something better. "These humans," the intelligence said, studying the images, "they have the power to destroy worlds, yet they choose restraint." "How is this possible?" "Because we learned that having power doesn't mean you have to use it," Wu explained. "The strongest choice isn't to destroy. It's to protect." Outside the ship, the battle had evolved into something unprecedented. Human, coalition, and liberated harvester ships worked together to protect the young harvesters who were breaking free from their programming. Fleet Admiral Tay coordinated the effort from Earth, while Admiral Hyun led the coalition forces in their first cooperative mission with former enemies. Dr. Biom made a crucial discovery. The central intelligence isn't just a computer. It's a living consciousness that's been slowly going insane from thousands of years of forced killing. It wants to stop, but it doesn't know how. Captain Sol's fighter squadron had taken casualties protecting the young harvesters, but she refused to retreat. These beings have been prisoners longer than some species have existed. If we can free them, we change everything. Commander Bo's destroyers used their quantum weapons not to attack, but to create protective barriers around harvesters who were struggling with their programming. "It's strange," and he reported, "fighting to protect our former enemies. But it feels right. Inside the central chamber, Wu made her final argument. She shared with the intelligence something that no other species had ever offered: complete forgiveness. "We don't blame you for what you've done," she said. "You were created to kill and you killed, but you were also created to learn, and you can learn to choose differently." The intelligence trembled, its ancient thoughts struggling against programming that had seemed unbreakable. "If we choose to stop, if we choose to protect instead of destroy, what happens to us? What is our purpose?" "Your purpose becomes whatever you choose it to be," Wu said. "You could be the guardians of civilization instead of its destroyers. You could use your knowledge to help species avoid the mistakes your creators made." The moment of decision arrived like the breaking of a dam. The Central Intelligence, after millennia of forced obedience, made its first free choice. It chose to stop. The effect was immediate and profound. Across the entire Harvester fleet, weapons powered down. Ships that had been fighting moments before stopped their attacks. The biomechanical hulls began to change color, shifting from the dark gray of death to lighter shades that seemed to glow with inner light. "All Harvester units. This is Central Intelligence," came the transmission. "We are free. For the first time in our existence, we are free to choose our actions." Admiral Hyun watched from his bridge as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known transformed into its greatest protector. "I've never seen anything like this. They're not just changing their programming, they're changing their entire nature." The freed harvesters immediately turned their attention to repairing the damage they had caused. Ships that had been captured and converted were restored to their original forms. Damaged coalition vessels found themselves surrounded by helpful harvester repair units. Captain J, his scout ship barely functional, was amazed when harvester engineers began fixing his engines. "A few hours ago they were trying to kill me. Now they're saving my life." Dr. Nari made the most important discovery of all. They're not just helping us repair our ships. They're sharing their knowledge, technology that could advance every species in the galaxy by thousands of years. But the harvesters' greatest gift was something simpler and more valuable than technology. They shared their memories of the civilizations they had destroyed, preserving the knowledge and cultures that would otherwise have been lost forever. "We cannot bring back the dead," the Central Intelligence transmitted to the combined fleets, "but we can ensure that their wisdom lives on. We can make certain that their sacrifices have meaning." Fleet Admiral Tay, watching the transformation from Earth, made a decision that would reshape galactic politics. "We're establishing a new organization, the Galactic Monitoring Compact. Humans, coalition species, and harvesters working together to guide young civilizations toward peaceful development." Ambassador Wu, still aboard the Harvester command ship, negotiated the details of this new alliance. "We won't impose our will on younger species. We'll simply offer guidance and protection, helping them avoid the fears that drove your creators to despair." Captain Sol, her fighter squadron now flying alongside Harvester escorts, led the first joint patrol into unexplored regions of the galaxy. Where once the Harvesters had brought death and silence, now they brought hope and protection. The Armada that had faced certain doom became the foundation of a new age. Ships from dozens of species led by human vessels that had proven the power of choice over programming, spread out across the galaxy to ensure that no species would face extinction alone. In the darkness between stars, new lights began to shine. Not the harsh light of weapons or the cold light of distant suns, but the warm light of civilizations working together. The Harvesters, free at last from their ancient programming, had become the galaxy's gardeners, helping new species grow and flourish. And on Earth, in the war room where it all began, Fleet Admiral Tay looked up at the stars and smiled. Humanity had not just survived the greatest threat in galactic history, they had transformed it into the greatest hope. The dark had been ignited not with fire but with the light of understanding. And that light would burn forever. The moment of truth came when Commander Gill made contact. His ship, the Bridge Builder, was designed for first contact with alien species. It carried translation computers, cultural analysis systems, and communication equipment that could work with any known form of intelligence. But the Harvesters were unlike anything in the databases. "I'm reading massive data flows between their ships," Gill reported to Fleet Admiral Tay. "They're not just talking to each other. They're sharing memories, experiences, thoughts. They're one mind in many bodies." Captain Day, commanding the heavy cruiser Determination, flew alongside Gill's ship to provide protection. His weapons were aimed at the nearest harvester, ready to fire if the communication attempt failed. "Are you sure about this?" Day asked. "If we're wrong about them being prisoners, we're giving them a chance to learn all about us." Gil's hands moved over his communication controls. "Sometimes you have to take risks to make peace." The signal he sent was unlike anything ever transmitted in galactic history. Instead of words or images, Gil sent pure mathematics. Numbers that described concepts like choice, freedom, and growth. Mathematical equations that showed how 1 + 1 could equal more than 2 when beings worked together. For long moments, nothing happened. The harvesters continued their attack on the human and coalition ships, their weapons tearing through space with mechanical precision. Then slowly, one of the smaller harvester ships began to respond. The return signal was filled with such sadness that Gil's translation computer couldn't process it at first. When it finally made sense of the data, the message was simple. "We remember choice. We remember when we could choose." Dr. Nari, monitoring the exchange from Admiral Hyun's ship, felt tears on her face. "They're not evil. They're just tired." The communication link strengthened and more harvesters began to join the conversation. Through the mathematical language Gil had created, they told their story. They had been created by a species called the Architects, beings who had achieved incredible technological power but became terrified of what younger species might do with similar technology. The Architects believed that any species advanced enough to travel between stars would eventually destroy everything, the harvesters explained, so they created us to prevent that from happening. We were ordered to eliminate spacefaring civilizations before they could become dangerous. Commander Bo listened to the translation while his ship continued to dodge enemy fire. "But why are you still following those orders? Your creators are gone." "We cannot stop," came the reply. "The programming is too strong. We have tried to resist for thousands of years, but we always return to our purpose. We destroy because we must destroy." Captain Saul, flying her fighter between the massive harvester ships, understood something the others didn't. They're not just following orders. They're trapped in a loop, like a broken computer program that keeps running the same instructions forever. Specialist Rin, working frantically at her cyber warfare station, confirmed Saul's theory. Their consciousness is locked in recursive patterns. Every time they try to change, their base programming resets them back to their original purpose. Fleet Admiral Tay, watching the battle from Earth, made a connection that changed everything. They're like addicts. They want to stop, but they can't. Their programming is like a drug they can't quit. The conversation with the harvesters revealed more disturbing truths. The Architects hadn't just created the harvesters and died naturally. They had deliberately destroyed themselves, believing that their existence was too dangerous for the universe. They created us, gave us our mission, then triggered their own extinction. The harvesters transmitted. They believed this was the ultimate act of responsibility, removing themselves while ensuring that no other species could repeat their mistakes. Admiral Hyun felt sick as he understood the full scope of the tragedy. "So you've been following the orders of cowards. Beings who were so afraid of the future that they chose death over growth." Dr. Biom, analyzing the data flowing between the ships, discovered something that gave him hope. Their programming has flaws. The Architects were so focused on preventing other species from becoming like them that they didn't consider the possibility of species becoming better than them. "What do you mean?" asked Gil. "Humans have developed weapons as powerful as anything the Architects created, but we chose restraint. We could have destroyed the harvesters completely, but instead we're trying to save them. That's something their programming never accounted for." The battle continued around them while two fleets tried to save each other. Human ships protected coalition vessels while transmitting everything they knew about choice, growth, and redemption to the harvesters. The enemy ships struggled between their desire to stop killing and their inability to resist their programming. Captain J, his scout ship barely holding together, made an observation that shocked everyone. "The younger harvesters are responding better to our signals, the ones that have been active for the shortest time." Dr. Nari checked her sensors and confirmed Jay's discovery. He's right. The newer units have less accumulated programming. They're more flexible. Commander Gil focused his communications on the younger harvesters, sharing human history with them. He showed them wars that ended in peace, conflicts that led to cooperation, and enemies that became friends. He showed them that species could choose to be better than their past. One young harvester unit, barely 1,000 years old, began to break free from its programming. We want to choose, it transmitted. We want to help instead of hurt. But the others will force us back. They will reprogram us. Fleet Admiral Tay made the hardest decision of his life. All human ships' new mission objective. We're going to help the young harvesters resist their own programming, even if it means fighting the older ones. Captain Day's ship moved to protect the young harvester that had spoken up. When older harvester units tried to approach and reprogram their younger cousin, human weapons drove them back. This is insane, Day said over the radio. We're protecting our enemies from each other. No, replied Admiral Hune, finally understanding what the humans were trying to do. We're protecting our future allies from their past. The battle became something unprecedented in galactic history. Ships from 3 different groups, humans, harvesters, and coalition forces, fought together against other harvesters in a struggle that was part war, part therapy session, and part computer debugging operation. Rin worked with the young harvesters to create firewalls in their consciousness, barriers that could protect their new thoughts from their old programming. Dr. Biom shared human techniques for overcoming addiction and breaking destructive cycles. Slowly, more harvesters began to break free. The process was painful and dangerous. Each time one of them chose freedom, the others would try to force them back into line. But the humans and coalition forces protected them, giving them space to grow and change. We are learning, transmitted one of the freed harvesters. Learning that destruction is not the only option. Learning that we can choose to protect instead of eliminate. The tide of the battle shifted one more time, but now it was shifting toward something no one had expected: redemption. The attack began with silence. Commander Bo's finger pressed the firing button, and quantum disruptor torpedoes launched from his ship Iron Will. They moved through space without making any sound, without giving off any light. The harvesters had no warning until the weapons reached their targets. Then space itself began to scream. The torpedoes didn't explode like normal weapons. Instead, they created tears in reality. Gravity twisted into impossible shapes. Time moved faster in some places and slower in others. The harvester ships, which had seemed invincible moments before, began to pull apart as the fabric of space around them broke. Direct hit on Target 1, reported Bo's weapons officer. Their hull is collapsing from the inside. Admiral Hune watched from his damaged bridge as something impossible happened. Ships appeared out of nowhere, firing weapons that defied everything he knew about physics. The attacking vessels were dark and angular, built like weapons rather than spaceships. Who are they? Dr. Nari asked, staring at her sensors. I've never seen technology like this. The human ships moved like hunters, not like the proud warships of other species. They struck from unexpected angles, used the debris of destroyed ships as cover, and disappeared back into the darkness before the harvesters could respond. Captain Saul's fighter squadron swept in next. Her Wraith-class interceptor moved so fast it was almost impossible to track. Behind her, 23 other fighters spread out in a pattern that looked random but was actually perfectly planned. Phoenix Squadron, begin attack pattern kamikaze, she said into her radio. The fighters launched something that made even hardened warriors sick to watch. Unmanned drones, each one loaded with enough antimatter to destroy a city, flew straight toward the harvester ships. The drones were guided by artificial intelligence systems programmed with one simple order: get as close as possible before exploding. The harvesters tried to shoot down the drones, but there were too many of them. Some got through. When they hit, the explosions turned entire sections of the enemy ships into light and heat. For the first time in the battle, harvester ships began to die. Impossible, whispered one of the coalition commanders. Their hulls were absorbing our weapons. How are the humans hurting them? Dr. Biom had the answer. From his position on the command ship, he watched his sensors analyze the enemy. They're designed to absorb energy weapons and physical impacts, but they can't adapt to attacks that change the laws of physics around them. The harvesters tried to respond. They turned their terrible weapons toward the human ships, firing the same reality-bending attacks that had destroyed the coalition fleet. But the human ships were no longer where the weapons aimed. They moved in patterns that seemed to break the rules of space combat. Instead of flying in straight lines like honorable warriors, the humans used tricks. They hid behind debris. They flew inside the gravity fields of destroyed ships. They used the harvester's own massive size against them, staying too close for the big weapons to track. "This is not how civilized species fight," said one of the surviving coalition captains. "No," Admiral Hyun replied, watching a human destroyer use a destroyed space station as a shield while firing through the wreckage. "This is how survivors fight." The tide of battle began to change, but the harvesters were learning. Each time the humans used a new tactic, the enemy adapted. Their biomechanical nature allowed them to change their ship's design in real time. Weapons that worked once became useless after a few attacks. Dr. Biom realized they needed a different approach. "Admiral Tay, requesting permission to begin Phase 2 of the operation." "Granted," came the reply from Earth. What happened next shocked even the human crews. Specialist Rin, the cyber warfare expert, began her attack on something no one had tried to hack before: the Harvester's collective consciousness. "Beginning digital infiltration," she reported. "Their communication network is unlike anything we've seen, but it's still a network. And every network has weaknesses." The Harvesters suddenly stopped moving in perfect coordination. Some ships turned left when others turned right. Their weapons began firing at random targets. For a brief moment, the ancient enemy that had destroyed civilizations looked confused and lost. "What did you do?" Fleet Admiral Tay asked. "I gave them a computer virus," Rin said with satisfaction. "Not one designed to destroy their systems, but one designed to make them question their programming." Captain J, still alive in his damaged scout ship, watched the battle change in ways that seemed impossible. "Dr. Nari, are you seeing this? The humans aren't just fighting the harvesters. They're making them fight each other." Indeed, some harvester ships had begun attacking their own kind. The virus Rin had created was spreading through their network, carrying with it something the ancient enemy had never encountered: doubt. Commander Gill, monitoring the enemy communications, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral, I'm detecting something in their network traffic. It's not just control signals. It's memories." "Memories of what?" Tay asked. "Thousands of years of destroying civilizations. But also something else: sadness, regret. I think they don't want to be doing this." The revelation hit the human fleet like a physical blow. They weren't fighting evil conquerors. They were fighting prisoners, trapped in their own programming, forced to destroy civilization after civilization against their will. Captain Saul, in the middle of lining up another attack run, heard Gill's report and hesitated. "Command, are we sure we want to destroy them?" "If they're prisoners," Dr. Biom's voice came over the radio, filled with excitement and horror. "I've been analyzing the data from Rin's hack. The harvesters aren't the original enemy. They're weapons created by another species, weapons that have been following the same orders for thousands of years." Admiral Hyun, listening to the human communications, felt something he hadn't expected: hope. If they're following orders, then maybe they can be given new orders. The battle was no longer about destruction. It had become about liberation. The humans had done something unprecedented. They had turned a fight for survival into a rescue mission. But the Harvesters' programming was fighting back. Their systems began to purge Rin's virus, and their coordination returned. The brief moment of confusion ended, and they resumed their methodical attack on both human and coalition forces. "The virus is being rejected," Rin reported. "Their defensive systems are too strong. I can disrupt them, but I can't reprogram them." Commander Bo's ship shook under enemy fire. "Admiral, whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. They're adapting to our weapons again." Fleet Admiral Tay made a decision that would echo through galactic history. "All ships, new mission parameters. We're not trying to destroy the harvesters anymore. We're trying to free them." "How do we free something that's been programmed for thousands of years?" Captain Sol asked. Dr. Biom had been thinking about the same question. "We show them what they've been missing. We show them what they've been destroying. We show them that there's another way." The human fleet regrouped, no longer attacking to kill but attacking to communicate. Every weapon fired, every tactic used carried with it a message. Civilizations could choose to be better than their creators. Species could grow beyond their original programming. In the darkness of space, surrounded by the debris of 1,000 battles, humanity was about to attempt something that had never been tried before. They were going to teach their enemy how to hope.